First of all, welcome everyone. This is the second virtual portfolio review that Story Gallery is doing. My name is Karina. I'm program coordinator at Story Gallery, but we also have Claudia Arana and Tamara, who are Claudia is the administrator of Story, and she will be also helping us to moderate the session um, with the chat. So if you see Claudia, she will be also, you can send some questions or messages there, and she will be also able to answer to them. And then we have Tamara Toledo, who is the director of Story Gallery as well. I will be moderating this evening session. And before we start, I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which Story Gallery is placed and where we gather, most of us gather tonight, is the traditional territory of the Wendat and Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nations, and the Métis Nation. Today, the meeting place of Toronto, in this case because there are gatherings in Toronto, is still the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. And we are very grateful to have the opportunity as immigrants to this land to work and to present here. I also want to acknowledge the government's arts funding, all of which supports our vision of a more diverse arts scene in Toronto. So I would like to thank the Canada Council of the Arts, Canadian Heritage, the Ontario Arts Council, the Toronto Arts Council, and the City of Toronto through Section 37. I would like to also thank everyone who was going to participate last Tuesday. We are very grateful for your understanding. Story Gallery as an art organization, this is something that we mentioned in our statement before. We are in support of Black Lives Matter. Our staff continues to reflect on our roles and also on the ways in which we can provide a safe space for Black communities. Since we have common goals of inclusivity, justice, and respect. Story Gallery is a project from LACAP, the Latin American Canadian art projects. And as a minority ourselves, we show our solidarity and empathy in the fight against racism. So we just want to make that clear. Thanks for joining us tonight. Today we have artist Nikole Hidalgo Mcgregor presenting and Carolina Delgado-Duruflé. So thank you for sharing your work with us tonight. And also we have two special guests who will be providing some feedback. They are curator and artist Deanne Smith. She's a current curator at Onsite Gallery run by OCAD University. Lisa has curated many powerful exhibitions, among them How to Read Forever and The Sunshine Eaters, among my favorite. And well, Lisa is a powerhouse, so I'm very happy to have you here. Also, we have Ruth del Fresno-Guillem. She's a friend of the house. Ruth is a contemporary, sometimes you get a contemporary art conservator. She's also an art historian and an artist herself. She runs Testimony Art, which is an innovative proposal that offers also services to rethink about conservational practices. So I would invite you to check both of their websites through our also social media as well. So you'll find the links to learn more about their practices and what they do. Well, before we officially start with the presentations, I would like to remind everybody that this is a safe space, so be very mindful with your feedback. We will have the chat, so along the presentations, all of you are free to write down your questions if some doubt arises, or just want to ask freely about the artwork of the artist. Just please feel free to write them down. You can also save them by the end. So the agenda of the day is that Nikole will present, and they will have some moment for Lisa and Ruth to share their feedback, and then Carolina will present as well, and then the same will happen. And by the end, the audience will give an open mic for the audience to also join the conversation with the artists. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Now I'll give the mic to Nikole. So yes, welcome, and please start.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here.
Nikole.
So I will bring in my presentation. Second.
Perfect, we see that.
Yes. So Yes, my name is Nikole Mcgregor. My middle name has been taking the place of my actual last name from my father's side. So I am a Peruvian Canadian artist. I moved to Canada when I was 21. I studied integrated media at OCAD University, and I focused my career more in what is interactivity, film, and animation. I put that picture of me as a kid because I want you to see how I was rocking the same hairstyle like since 1992. Um, so about my about my practice, I focus mainly on themes of intersectional feminism and everything that is included into what intersectional feminism means. This includes, of course, like social justice, women's issues, um, anything that has to be with politics and such. I am a really political artist, and I drive a lot of my um, like how I project my art is always informed by contemporary issues. So about the style that I work with, it is of broken narrative and surrealist animation, mainly waving dreamlike sequences in order to have a more active, like I give an active role to the viewer, since like they are in the position of understanding what the film is saying to them, but at the same time, like it's not only my voice the one that is informing this, but also the like the living experiences of the viewer. I find that even if someone does not like what I make, regardless, they have done work. You know, like they have homework every time they are trying to observe what I am creating. I also work with interactivity. This has come after like a bit of self-exploration about what I can do with animation and how can I take away from just like the two-dimensional screen. And I have focused, like my interactive work is more research, so it's more informing contemporary issues, expanding cinema and relational aesthetics as a way of creating like me creating opportunities for people to interact with my piece as the like just an opportunity. As you can see on the pictures here, people come with their friends, they take a picture of them, and then they engage with the themes that I am trying to thrive on. This is a piece that I created with my partner in our collective, the Back Reboot. Uh, this piece was talking about big data and how big data grabs our images and separates us, categorizes us in different silos, as well as like we use like Google's reverse search engine to see like what does Google understand for the perception of ourselves, like just as an image. This piece is on my website if you want to explore it further. I as well work with like games. I like to create games, and I still try to drive the same themes of current issues. And this game we created this year with another collective that I have, Box Meet Revolution, and on it we brought like the themes of social isolation, this idea that you will spend all your day with pajamas in your house cooking whatever you find, and this is in this case potatoes, because I'm Peruvian, of course. And yeah, like another thing that I have really clear about all my pieces is to put brown bodies on the screen, since Latino representation is the lowest in North American media. So I find upon myself to just like always have brown bodies on the work that I do. Uh, like my work has become more and more collaborative as time has passed, from like single channel animation that I was able to do by myself in the confines of my home, doing my own research and informing like myself on a really like screen me, nobody else way. Um, as my career path as an artist has evolved, I have discovered that I am trusting more and more on collaboration, and I even find it absolutely necessary for me to keep growing. So this is another piece that I am creating right now. This is an ongoing project that I'm doing with a fellow artist, um, Simon Nordi. And what we're doing is like a retail of the game, um, Cadaver, exclusive Curator, or Cadaver Exquisito, if you have ever heard of it. And we are sharing the quotidian through audio messages. And then we take these audio messages and we reutilize them. We repackage it with a bit of the information of the audio message as well as our own quotidians, our own ethos, uh, like our environment and what we're doing. Um, is meant to be a web project that offers to the viewer a window inside our experiences instead of doing like I was talking about relational aesthetics since lately it has informed a lot of my work, but this is like another use of it instead of giving opportunities to the viewer to interact with our pieces. We're giving ourselves opportunities to create art while living the new normal. And the viewer here would be like, it would be just in a voyeuristic adventure through our weeks of self-isolation. Uh, so this is the piece that I wanted to talk today. It's Welcome Alien. Just if you have a phone with you, you can go to the URL. It's up online. So what we created with this, we built a neutral ground in which this soul entity that is Dueler is the sole living creature in this like virtual space. And we thought about it, like this is a piece with my collective debug reboot. It's a collective that I have with my partner. There's a computer scientist, also a Latino person. And it was, how can we transmit the experiences, our lived experiences with microaggressions into a ground that other people have also the ability to live them with us. So this virtual landscape became like that opportunity, this space that in which everybody who approaches our bot, Euler, becomes an alien to the land, a newcomer. And like this piece is filled with comedy into itself. It's Euler is a really nice entity that honestly like mistreats you and uses microaggressions with the excuse of curiosity, you know, that I'm sure that some of you may have encountered. So it like the way that this bot was trained was actually trained on conversations that relate to microaggressions that my partner and myself we have experience with, as well with people in our community were able to share with us. So if you like, if you interact with it, behind Euler there is a composition of what will be virtual Toronto. We created like these wireframe type city landscapes that were from the city of Toronto, that is like the land that we belong on and that we find that is home, but it's still everybody that like every time that we encounter someone new will ask us, where are you from? And it's not the fact that we do not belong to Peru. The fact is that we are being questioned about it. That like it's a tangent point. It's not that I am ashamed of my roots. It's that people are separating me of this place that I consider that I belong. So we took this virtual Toronto landscape and we hosted Euler there. And now this was a piece that we had the luck to present last year, and it has earned the support of the Canada Council for the Arts, as well as the Ontario Arts Council, and it was presented in the Roundtable Residency. But right now it keeps living online, and we keep collecting stories from different people that are interacting with the bot. And our plan is to increment the level of knowledge our bot has right now, as well as expanding the universe of answers that the bot can engage with. As I mentioned, this is an ongoing project that we expect to live, and hopefully it will surpass the lasting effects of microaggressiveness. Even if microaggression finishes, hopefully it will live as a testament of what it was. And yes, that is it for me. I will leave the code there for a second. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nikole. So now we'll have like some comments from Ruth and Lisa. So I will say who would like to jump in first. Can I unmute you? Yeah.
Me first?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Hi, Nikole. Thank you for your presentation. It was very, very interesting. I really like time-based media art, but as an art conservator, I am the bad guy here. So I will start with the last sentence you said, that you are hoping that this is a testament, your work, the work that you are presenting. And as an art conservator, my question is, do you have in mind obsolescence?
It's quite funny because in my art is not funny, but interesting that in my art instruction as a certain way, like you can see obsolescence a lot in what it's technical, like the apparatus itself. I do not know how are we gonna interact with the virtual in the future, and there are a lot of questions about how it's gonna be relevant, the way of ourselves interacting with artificial intelligence and such. But since we are I do not consider this piece will never be over neither. I find that it has to be updated, it has to be revised. From last year to this year, we had to revise some things about the code because there had been updates in HTML. So that is something that it's also it's inside our scope of responsibility with our own project. But in certain way, as news are advancing, bots are gonna be so much, we are gonna be interacting with bots so much more in the future, with IBM going into healthcare, with Watson. I think that if anything, it will become way more natural for ourselves to just engage with anything that talks to us back. And in a view of engagement, I think that it only will get more natural. In a way of, if the technology will keep up, I think that yes, it's more difficult to keep up with it, and we will need to.
I'm not thinking about the evolving technology because none of us knows how it's going to happen. It's more about your specific piece. If you have thought about how the piece can evolve, and if you are aware about the possibility of the piece disappearing, if you are ready for that, or if you they are questions for you to think. They are not questions for you to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? Never. I would never put you on the spot, because that's not my intention. My intention as a conservator is more to make you think about specific aspects that you might not have thought. And they could be important in the future, because in a time-based media production, you can also decide that it's an ephemeral piece. And this piece can disappear just when the technology disappears. And that's correct. But the thing is that you have decided. You don't have left that to happen just because. And my question was more in the line of, have you thought about it? If you have thought about it, what are your thoughts? If you have not thought about it, I encourage you to think about it. But they are not questions for putting you in a situation of, oh my God, right? Because I think these portfolio reviews are for this, right? Are for help one each other.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. I honestly, it's so difficult overall with technology. It's so difficult to understand actually how reliable our connection with it is, because things that we feel that were attached us as they were programs, like, I don't know, like Messenger in the 90s, we thought it was going to be forever. It's not lasting, and for a piece like mine, it requires a little bit of engagement with the bot. If that connection disappears, the piece also disappears. But it's honestly, it's a really interesting question that I need to.
And evolving aesthetic, because aging will affect to the aesthetic too.
Yeah.
The visual aspect of the piece. If that is important for you or is not important. So just keep in mind those kind of things. I don't want to patronize that, so Lisa, go ahead.
I'll jump in. Thanks so much, Nikole. It was great to learn about your work, and I spent some time today playing with the bot, so that was fun. Before maybe I jump in, though, I've actually thought a fair amount about the conservation of time-based and digital media works, because it is a problem. And I made one piece in the, I don't know, maybe late 80s or early 90s that I love, and it's gone forever, and that makes me really sad. But I know some artists now that every 6 months or a year will take a video recording of the piece and then save that, because video seems to be easier to move through different types of platforms as they evolve. So it's not it doesn't mean that someone can interact with the piece, but at least you've captured it historically. And so that might be something to build into your practice, is at some point that you just record everything that and hold it on a hard drive or something that might change platforms or disappear, or you might just decide that you're done with that project and have it live. In listening to your overall practice and also that piece, I'm really interested in your choice of working in collectives and collaborating. I mean, it sounds a little bit from your conversation that part of that was, technical, because everyone brings in different skills. But I'd like to know if, what else does the collaboration bring you, and how do you think it affects your projects overall?
It's not, at the beginning it started with skills, how to create more interesting pieces that can reach different type of ways of engagement, but also voices. Like, one thing is the voice that you have for yourself, how you converse with yourself about things, like this self-meditation. But the act of saying that, even if I am not listening, the act of saying something changed my appreciation for it. Like I have realized that I am even like writing right now, or with another colleague. So when we talk to each other about what we're writing about, and this paper that we're creating together, it uppens the value of the themes that we're exploring, or it actually let us realize that it's like not valuable at all. These conversations have been like, I find that it has made my work so much richer, at least for the way that I work, because I am interested in relational aesthetics. Like that's all the thing that I have been going on. Even when I was doing two-dimensional single channel video, I was always trying to, okay, my video is going to be also an exercise for the viewer. I want them to engage this way. They don't have audio, so the viewer has to kind of unravel the meanings of what they are watching. But like now it has become like that practice is more active. It's not a relational aesthetics only, relational works that are only for the viewers. Is relational work for the artists, how we are experiencing creating in order to give an experience to the viewer. That's kind of the balance that I find. That's why I say a lot of relational aesthetics, because it has become like so important in my practice in so many levels, from creation to practice. And yeah, I find that it just becomes truer. Like the art that I am doing, it becomes more honest since its beginnings. It's kind of,
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I'm really interested in collaboration as a political stance. And I think a lot of artists are, I think you're doing it really intuitively, and you know that it makes the works better, and you're also collaborating with the audience. I think it would be great to bring that forward, like in your artist statement, or in some ways, like to, because you're doing it and it's bringing so much. But I think it's important for people to think about, because I think it's world changing, you know, of people that are prefacing practices that, I mean, there's many ways to change the world, but I think that is one thing that's really important right now, is the idea of evaluating multiple voices together that's making something, that it makes it better. And so I think you could really honestly and genuinely bring that forward a little bit in your statements, or if you're doing grant writing or applying for shows, because I think it would be important for you to capture that.
thank you. Like that's honestly like brilliant. I thank you so much, both of you. Like I'm taking notes if I am looking elsewhere. Taking notes of everything.
Yeah, there's some room like we have still time for a couple more feedback, or if the audience have maybe a question now. Or Ruth,
Yes,
would you like to
I
jump in?
have
Yeah,
something
perfect.
to say, but I didn't want to interrupt Lisa about what she said about videotaping. I'm sorry, but there are other kind of strategies for conservation. And what you suggested is documentation, it's not conservation, as you are converting the piece into another thing. So that's why I always ask for reflect, because you first have to decide what is your piece, what is really your piece. In the case of Nikole, I understood the piece is the interaction. It's not even the support, it's not even the image, it's not nothing but the interaction, or that's what I thought. So there is no interaction, the piece doesn't exist. So if you record that, there is no interaction, so it's just a documentation. I'm just pointing because from the point of view of conservation, there is a huge field dedicated just for time-based media. And there are a lot of studies related to that. So just don't think about documentation as your strategy if you don't want to make your piece as a document. But as I always tell the artists which I work, you are the only one who decided what is your piece and if documentation becomes your piece too, because you are the owner of the piece, you are the creator. In your situation that you work in collaboration, as Lisa was pointing, you have to decide in a collaborative way to be fair.
Yeah.
But that would take like for a lecture, so I don't want to jump in that. Just wanted to point at that video recording is one strategy that it could not work.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that we can go pass the mic to Carolina. Are you ready for your presentation? Wait, I have to unmute you, so you have to, I'm asking you to unmute, so then,
Okay.
yeah, now we can hear you. Perfect.
Hello. So first, thank you to Sur Gallery and for inviting me to the review portfolio. Sometimes I have, I just speak fluent English, but something happened and my English sometimes, it's my soul is the Spanish. So when I speak with my soul, it's the Spanish. So I try to speak with my soul with the English, but it's quite difficult. So I am working in this moment with a
Carolina, sorry, I'm gonna ask you, maybe you can share your screen. So because then you'll be showing us some stuff, so we better set that up.
Yes, so I don't have like I mentioned before, I'm going to make a tour of the things I am doing.
Yeah, so it would be great. So you just share your screen, so then we can see it in the big screen when we see your sculpture.
Okay.
So it's below.
Where can I do that?
It's below. It's at the bottom. At the bottom, then you will see share screen.
Yes.
If you go, you see all the little screens, and then at the bottom the option share screen. So then when we make the tour, we are able to see it like big and.
Okay. Share screen, but I can't find it. I don't know where. It's the video, and I can find the share my screen. I can't find it. Sorry.
Okay, well that's fine. Then I will just recommend everybody to use the option of a speaker view. So then that way we'll see our screens bigger when Carolina speaks. That's okay. So if we all choose a speaker view, we'll be able to see the image bigger instead of for the ones that have the gallery option on. Okay, proceed. Thank you, Carolina.
Okay, so sorry about that.
That's fine. No
well, I didn't make a presentation. I actually I'm going to make a tour in my studio, and I can tell you about all my kind of process of like an artist. So I am a Colombian artist. I am here. I moved to Canada 6 years ago, and I started working with the new material. Well, I was working before with porcelain, but now I am getting more into the material. And I used to work with plants, and I have been working with plants for 17 years now. So I have this kind of connection with plants, and I used to have a plant shop in Colombia. And I think that's the majority of my inspiration, no? Like I call myself like a environmental artist. And I have been working, like I have been getting in love with the technique of porcelain, like white porcelain, and I have been working a long time ago with a person actually at the moment, and all the things that I draw, he make the things real. He work with glass, so it's handmade glass, and it's amazing the communication that we have, because I just made drawings and he made everything that is in my head. So that's amazing. Like I'm very happy for that, and I start to work with the plant. I'm going to show you all the things. Maybe you tell me if here. So that's the things when I start working with plants and everything. I start planting all the objects that I found everywhere in the streets, and I start selling this in this shop. So I start working with all the plants. And after I just start making this combination with glass and plants. Sorry about that. I will show you so this collection of Masi start with this helmet here that was just a helmet before the COVID start. I started working in this character in 2017. And for me I was kind of in a shock when all this happened, because when I showed them at first was a week before all the lockdown and all these kind of things, that for me was a kind of very strange moment, because I was thinking of them since 2017. But this little helmet here, one day I was working with porcelain and with another collection that I have that is called Resilience. That is I start making these flowers in porcelain and think about the vulnerability of plants and nature. But I start to make this kind of think about women as well, how we are kind of vulnerable. The word thing that we are vulnerable, but after it's like you are not vulnerable, the women are not vulnerable. And I think after I have my daughter, I start thinking about how start, and I made this comparison with art and with the I started working with that, and I start thinking in how woman and nature have this kind of similitude, and how the people and human beings have been thinking that woman and nature is so vulnerable and you can do everything with them, and after you realize how strong and resilient you are. So all this to show that I get in love with the material, and after getting in love with the porcelain and the glass together, and I start to experiment some things. And when I was in my town in Pasto, when I was actually in Bogota, I was looking this kind of religious thing. You can see here, religious, and you can see this kind of symbols of religion. So I started just thinking about it, and I started working the first series, and was this kind of things with the Virgin, but I started thinking about the indigenous thoughts and about how they're the gods of the indigenous, and how we start to be how to make this kind of things with put the like to how you say to change all your thoughts, and to how to explain, it's hard to explain, no, this kind of thing about. So I want to put the side by side separate indigenous symbols and plants to make people think about our constant lack of respect for both of them. So the Masi is that symbol here. Is the tie of a monkey. So I went to Pasto and I meet this jeweler, and I asked her, and I say, maybe you can do something. And we do this with brass and gold. And we use brass in the same sentence to think about mining. Colombia is a huge country for Canadian mining, who are involved violence and forced displacement, especially against indigenous people. So maybe it's a lot of transcendental things here, like nature and mining and indigenous symbols. And after I meet in the Amazon, the community called Ticuna community, and they work with this material that is chambira, and it's a palm, and I get in love with the material, and the way that they wave the material I really like it. And I start making this kind of mix and fusion of porcelain and gold and glass. So I am working at the moment. It's a work in progress. I have been framing some things, and sometimes it's complicated because all my glass is from Colombia. So when I go to Colombia, it's amazing because I bring all the characters. I made the porcelain with the heads, but I made the heads. But it's a kind of difficult when you bring all the glass and everything. So for me to make the collections is a kind of sometimes it's difficult because you have to go to Colombia to bring the things and put the things together. But I have been getting more and more in love with these two materials, and so I think that is one of the projects that I want to talk in this conversation. I am very, like I mentioned before, I am also very inspired by the traditional designs of the ticuna, because these people made all these beautiful things. And what else can I say? I have a kind of, I'm going to include some hand-blown glass in this project, like I mentioned before, that this combination about Messi came a bit as an accident, as my glass bubbles were supposed to be helmets for charters. So these charters, the first time that I showed them were in the Gladstone Hotel. I made this submission and I go in, so I was so happy and lucky to show my work before all this started, because I remember the last day was a Sunday, 15th of March, and the 16th, yeah, like everyone has to be at home in the quarantine. So for me, it was a kind of a strange moment to a strange moment to show my work, but as well a lucky time to show my work because it was very in the theme, no, in the issue that quarantine and this kind of protection, and the thing that I want to reflect how natural and how we need to stop and see the value of the small things. So maybe with this quarantine, you can stop and think about it, you know, and the value of and respect for each other, like with this proper moment of the lives Black Matters, and how we need to think and rethink about everything in our life. And it's like to go to the start, you know, it's like to go to the beginning, and that's my message like an artist, and that's the thing that I have been working for such a long time, and to make this fusion to being an artist, and I'm an interior designer actually, and to make this fusion and to try to communicate, because I think the best way to communicate is through art, and maybe sometimes I get very kind of political, and I don't want to listen pessimist as well, because sometimes um, on the themes that I am interested in, the violence of the colonization of the Americas of indigenous people, the devastating impacts of mining, and the resilience of natural life. I want to be critical of the world, but I don't want to be negative. At least not depressing. It's like, do you think that I use the right way to? That's a question that I have for the curators, because sometimes I feel maybe I try to. Sometimes I am a little bit pessimist, but I don't want to reflect that in my work, and that's a question that I have for the curators. Because do you think that I use the right way to combine what I want to express with masses, like this project that I have here, because it's a kind of criticizing the colonization and the Canadian companies mining. I think Toronto is the bigger city in the world where the companies of mining are. So for me, it's a kind of strange to be here and to see how in my country mining is killing everything and everyone. And because we have a huge problem at the moment, and a lot of social leaders are getting killed every single day. And for me, we have been in a war for more than 60 years, and I think all this have to come with this kind of mining things, colonization things. It's like it doesn't stop. So I get very sentimental sometimes, very sentimental, and through all my work, I try to communicate all these kind of things that are happening in my country, and that's messy. That's messy. Messy is in progress. It's not ready yet. I am just experimenting with all the things. I'm going to frame some. I was trying to do some repetitive motifs of flowers that are in danger because of the mining as well. The paramos, some of the paramos is a beautiful and very unique ecosystem in Colombia and Ecuador. And now it's happening a lot of things there with the mining and with the forestation. And it's a lot of flowers that had been become in the red list of they are in danger of disappear. So I am making a research actually of the flowers of that going to disappear, and to see if I can make this kind of mix of the symbol of the indigenous pastos that they are already disappear, and the flowers that are going to disappear, and just to put this helmet to protect them. That is the thing with the glass, no? That I think that the glass protect the flowers, and a lot of things maybe very transcendental. And I think in this moment, like the COVID, it's like everyone has to protect, and it's strange to live like that. It's strange to live with afraid for everything, afraid for everything that can unite. Indigenous people is always afraid, and the people who lives in the mines live like that, afraid all the time. Their water is contaminated. So yes, my worry is that's the first question that I have for the curators. Now I am looking for a gallery in Toronto to represent me. It's a gallery in France, in Paris, that is very interested in my work. So like immigrant, it's hard to start, no? It's like when you have everything built in your own country and you start in a new country, everything is new. But I am in love with the things I do, so that's the thing. That's my hope, and to see what's going to happen after.
Yeah, I think it's a great moment. Since you have very specific questions, we can give the platform to our guests. Probably with this time we can start with Lisa. So then we'll ask you. Okay.
Carolina, thank you so much for that. It was really nice to see all
Carolina.
the work. Carolina, thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for correcting me. It's interesting. I've spent a couple of years, I think, in a little bit of a similar quest to think a lot about relationships with humans and non-humans, and intellectually, I can really understand, coming from Western culture, I've been, imbued with that, the belief that humans are kind of at the top of this pyramid and are kind of above all other living beings. And, I intellectually don't believe that, and I find it easy not to believe that. That said, I find it hard, and I've done all kinds of, exercises and looked at tons of other artists and artists that have different worldviews to try to kind of embed this equal relationship and valuing of all human cultures and non-humans, including plants and trees and animals and the air and water, and trying to imbue that in my subconscious. So that's sort of like a quest I'm on, and I see seeds of that in your work. And I found for myself a lot about how my learning process has gone is kind of how I use things. So I think when you're talking about, the right way to express things, I mean, kind of some of my first questions were, you're bringing forward these indigenous designs and, do you have permission to do that? How do they sit in that culture? That would be, I think, one of my important, how is that indigenous voice then collaborated into your work? Or is it kind of extracted? And if it's extracted, I would think about, how to bring forth your genuine concern for, the way the mining and that, type of, indigenous voice, but how to bring it forward in a way that is also empowering and indigenous peoples from Pasto.
So the indigenous, well, these symbols here are the symbols from the Masi, that means monkey. But this community is already disappeared. It's no one. It's no Pastos. They doesn't exist anymore. So I am just taking extraction of the shapes of the symbols that they used to use like protection, and this one of those. This one is one of these. So this kind of Masi, the tail of the monkey, was a symbol of protection. So I am just trying to extract the symbol, and that's with the Pastos that doesn't exist. And I work with the Ticuna that are from the Amazon, and actually I work with the community. I work with them. I have a line in my commercial life. I have a Carolina Delgado home, and I work with indigenous community, and they made this basket that I sell here. I have a Etsy shop, and I made objects for home as well, like this commercial side. So I work with them. So this was just a sample of the things that they use for placemates. So I say it's a good idea to put it in the frames. So I work actually with this community, and they are alive. But the other ones, I just take destruction of the symbols of the Masi, of the Pastos. I don't know if I give you the answer.
Should I
Ruth,
jump
did
in?
you want to jump in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, Ruth, could you?
Hi. Thank you, Carolina. Your work is really nice. I saw your work some time ago in a blog that I follow, the Jello's Curator, and she did a really nice post of your work. And I was really curious about knowing, about meeting you, because when I saw those pieces, I felt that they were very whimsical. But now that I hear you talking, it makes me, it confused me a little bit. Because I feel like in terms of concept, you want to say too much. There is so many things in there that you want to say that from my side, I feel like it's too much. But aside of that, and I have no answer for that because I am not a curator. I'm not, so I don't want to go into there. But in terms of conservation, I see that your work, it's very clean, and very pristine, right? It's white, it's gold, it's water, it's nature. So for those materials, all of the materials they use, beside the plants, I am going to leave the plants for the end, but all the materials you are using, they age, they change, they become, they evolve, right? So my question is, do you embrace that aging? Is it part of your aesthetic? If it is, fine. How are you going to communicate that to your clients, to your collectors, to your gallerists, or anybody who interacts with your piece? If aging is not something that you don't want to accept, or it's not in your discourse, in your intent, how have you planned to solve that problem, if you have planned? Or if, again, I would say the same I told Nikole. I'm not pointing at things for making a problem. It's for you to reflect. Okay? So if for you cleaning and transparency is important, you should think about a strategy for that. Replacement, cleaning, whatever you think it's important. Because if well, I felt like the pristine factor is important, but maybe I'm wrong. So is it important for you?
Can you traduce me? Pristine is
Yeah,
pristine en
cleanness.
español.
En español es pristino.
Pristino. Okay.
Pristino. O sea, es the clean,
Okay.
the very clean. Because
Okay.
I mean, the sculptures you have, the objects you have made in glass, it's a transparent glass, and inside you have water, right? And water changes, evaporates, makes stains, becomes white, changed. But if you add the factor of the plants, then you have green and mold and all of those organic factors. Are those factors important for you? Are they not? Are they part of the concept? I'm just, as I said, it's just a question. It's not a pointing or something.
Well, with the Masi, I don't have plants, like live plants inside. It's just the porcelain. But in my last collections, some of them have, I think my art is constantly changing. And someone said to me, some people that want to buy art sometimes don't want to be, they don't want to like look after a plant. They want a piece of art. So that bring me this thing at this moment, that so my work is constantly like changing. But of course, with the aquatic plants that I put in the transparent, they change, and sometimes they die, and sometimes the people will have to interact with the object and with the piece of art and clean it. And I don't know if I am making you the good answer, but
there is no good
with
or
this
bad
Masi
answer.
particularly, it's not going to have live plants. but yes, with this one, with this collection, it's not going to be live plants. It's like the things that are in my mind at the moment, like the things that I have been working, is just a mix of porcelain, white porcelain, and glass, and but no any live plants. But yes, like you mentioned before, like the aquatic plants, sometimes you have to change it. But I think for me, it's very interesting that the people of my clients have this interaction with the piece of art. It's like, for me, it's a kind of it's more fun as well. But actually, I have some keys here that are in glass, but I was thinking if I put something inside, that they don't have to open anything, or they don't have to clean it, or it's going to be like that. But I like I like the way that they have to. It's hard to think about it, and the people, I don't know, you are a curator, or you know about the people who buy art. I don't know if the people would like to have this kind of thing to clean. It's like to have a fish, no? It's like the people will clean the fish and the house of the fish, and I don't know. It's like when I used to have my plant shop all the time, I will say to my clients, you are now responsible of this plant, so you have to be careful with that. So I think with the pieces that I made that have plants, I will do the same, but I don't know what they will think about.
But you are the artist, so I mean, as I was telling Nikole, the strategy has to be established by you, or you decide your piece goes and flies. But it's a decision. It's a conscious decision, because if you decide I don't care, it's a decision, but it's a conscious decision.
Yeah.
It's different than if you really care but you don't know what's going to happen. In the case of Nikole, there is a technological component that we cannot know how it's going to evolve. We don't know. But in your case, that you are using very traditional materials, in the fact that we know glass, we know ceramics, we know porcelain, we know metals. So I mean, there has been used for a long time in different ways. So there are studies about how they evolve and how they age and how they change. So you have another possibility to decide. That's why I was asking you if you have thought about it, if you haven't, and if it's not important, it's not important. Just a question.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to jump in for
it's
just
very
a
important.
second because, oh, sorry. I mean, I think it depends where you're coming from. And, you know, like in a gallery like ours, so, you know, we're kind of in a strata where we're not a museum, but we're not an artist-run center. We're not a commercial gallery. And I mean, and for us, in that context, I'm not worried about conservation. We're not selling the work. So I'm not an expert on it, but it's perfectly fine to show plants in work. And we do have a collection, and we do have to mitigate risk in regards to any kind of, insects kind of moving from a plant into, but, you know, we have strategies of mitigating that risk and stuff. But part of me feels like, you know, I agree that the artist has to make decisions on, you know, when is the work kind of complete. But on the other hand, it is sort of the conservator's job to, you know, if they're showing in a museum and that's, you know, or they're showing with a commercial gallery, then that's something that, you know, I think it is important to think through, but also, you know, there's lots of experts to help you with that. I think one thing that I want to kind of switch tracks a little bit, and Ruth was, I agree that you've got a lot of going on in the work, and one thing that I feel like I don't really understand, and I'm kind of interested, and I keep kind of imagining it, is how you install the works. You know, there's a lot of components, and, you know, so are they existing as, you know, individual kind of objects that would be put on plinths, or are they, you know, when I looked at your website, you know, you have these beautiful installations with the plants, and you know, study interior design, and so there's part of me is like, what do you do with these? Because I could see so many different possibilities of kind of dialing in on some of your ideas depending on how you chose to install the works.
Hello?
Carolina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you. I lost you a little bit, but now I can hear you.
Okay. Did you hear what Lisa said?
I missed the last sentence. I missed the last piece that she was saying.
Just curious about
Sorry,
how
I didn't listen the last.
Install the works, or if there's like, if you've considered the installation, because it seems like a good opportunity to maybe dial in or focus on one or two of the ideas, or to tease them out a bit further.
Well, it's like I think, well, with the like where to sell them. No, I can understand I can understand like too much. If you can, I can understand the question really.
Oh, what I think that Lisa is trying to say is that she's seen the pictures of how you display the stuff, your objects, and she was thinking that in thinking about the display, because you address there's so many components that address different things and different issues in a certain way. If you have thought about this display on how things can be focused, so then what you're trying to say can be clear and it doesn't, or might be too much, like how you display will show, will reflect all of these ideas that you're trying to communicate.
I mean, as a curator, I'm always thinking about, so.
Okay, like how I going to.
I think there's a lag in the connection, Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think I don't know why, but I know I am. Sometimes I lose the. Now you hear me? I hear
yes,
you.
we hear you. Yes, I think it's a lag. With
Yes, now you can hear me. I think I'm going just to check this. Yes, I think it's okay. Yeah. Okay, so I think like that's another thing and another question that maybe I have for you too, and you can help me, because sometimes it's like when I have been making shows and like interior designer in Colombia, I used to sell my art to my clients, and when I was making hotels in Colombia, so I used to make this kind of walls with my things inside, and now that I am here, it's like I have been just showing my work 2 times. I was, like I mentioned before in the Glenson, I am an installation. So I think that's my question. It's like where you see, like I love to show my work like an installation more than just one piece hanging in the wall or putting in a table. It's like I really like to make an installation, but sometimes I don't know if the galleries are interested in making art installations. So that's another kind of is the answer of the question, and it's a question as well. So I don't know. It's like that's a huge question that I have, because when I do my frames, like this kind of messy, of course I want to put in the walls, but with the little persons and characters, it's like to put it inside to tell a story in the installation. So I don't know if I give you the answer.
Well, I think we can open the platform also to questions from the audience, and also we can ask both artists also questions for Nikole or Carolina, or any feedback or comment that our audience have. Like all of you, you're free to comment, or if you are a bit shy of asking directly any question, just feel free to pop that out in the chat, and then either Claudia and I can read the questions for you. I am curious, Nikole, about your work and how, like, kind of like the response you've seen from people, like, because it's this interaction, but it's also about these microaggressions. So I was wondering how you were kind of dealing with that, or how's been this response of the audience, and what that machine has been learning as well.
Yes, it was honestly really interesting. There was this thing that, like, in our collective, we really, a lot of times when you are confronting themes of, racism, it's such a difficult thing to talk about. So we wanted to create something that was like really kind of funny, way of talking about microaggressions for communities that probably have been exposed to it themselves. And it was quite interesting because I find that a lot of people will just go in groups to play with it. And they were like, whoa, and like, you could see in their faces that because the bot becomes like a little bit annoying, but not for you to hate. Like, it doesn't never make you angry; it just makes you annoyed. Um, we honestly, we also have like a disclaimer. If people have been experienced microaggressions and they actually can be emotionally affected by it, they should not interact with the bot. But uh, uh, while the installation was on, most of the people that entered it were white people, and it was quite interesting to watch. Like, they were smiling. They were like, okay, sure. And a lot of other people were trying to trick the bot, feed them other questions, just kind of push the button, see if they can break it or break the interaction. They could break the interaction, of course, because there is a certain level of training on it as well. But overall, I find the response of the different bodies interacted with the bot was rather positive. It was really interesting to watch, not for being like, I'm looking at you, but just like the conversations that they also carried after the interaction were interesting. Yeah, I'll say like overall there was not any bad feeling because it's a really soft intervention. It's not an aggressive one, and we were really conscious about it as well, about making it nice.
Yeah, I think that friendliness is kind of a pretty clever element to it, because I guess most of us who have experienced like these comments that you won't even detect them as microaggressions sometimes because we're so used to them or because we don't realize they are. And it's like when someone is like, "Oh, your English is so good, like for not being from here," and it's like, "Are you expecting me like to have like a not good English or to not learn fast or whatever, or other stuff that other friends have encountered as well?" And but at the moment we're not able to. So I think that sort of friendliness is interesting, but also when you're mentioning that what people approaches them, how they are able to detect that, it's like this kind of in between. I think it's very clever, like putting it as a friendly bot. I guess it makes you wonder because it's hidden, it's very hidden. It's interesting about it also. Well, I'm not very techy, but how machines also learn to certain functions and learn from like the interaction with the audience as well. That's one thing. I have, Claudia has a question or comment.
Yes,
Go ahead.
I also have a question for Nikole. I was wondering, what are you guys doing with all the data, like all the answers? Everyone, it's kind of logging in a lot of information. What are you doing with that? Like, do you keep it? Are you doing a research about it? And then I also tried a few times, and I noticed that there's kind of course, a few questions that you kind of predict a little bit the answer, like how it's going to respond, right? So it is this something that it keeps I don't know, looping in a way, or it changes every, I don't know how the code is structured, but just wondering about all the information that you're gathering right
Yeah, we like, because the bot right now, as you mentioned, it reaches a point in which it becomes a little bit redundant into its own like being, like it starts questions that are really related to each other. So that is because it's young, I would say, like the amount of conversations that it has been trained to answer and had been approved, because first is the training and then it's like, this is the approved way to go. It's really limited by now, but we have kept all that information, like, and right now we are in categorization. So like which are actually like the most common answers that people have, and when people are trying to dive, like just move away from like escape the microaggressive loop, how do we bring them back? So those are strategies that we're like right now exploring, and we're in like data classification right now. What is relevant? What is actually just people joking around with the bot? What can be repurposed, as well as feeding it more stories, because you feed like a list of probable answers and pathways for it to answer. But yes, like we need to train it more, so its vocabulary, it's like intervention level increments, and we find that all that data that we're saving is going to help us to get that cover, as well as to avoid people escaping the intervention. That right now is something that you can do if you like just play around with like questions or answers that are just going away from the main theme. So like that is the plan. That's what we are doing right now with that.
We have a question for Carolina. It's from one of our audience here, from Ingrid, and I'm gonna read it just to not misphrase it. Carolina, I think you said that you are a land artist. I see that when the people who have your work have to take care of or on an ever-evolving nature. I would be interested in the way these pieces are displayed in a gallery. So how are these pieces, especially the ones that seem to be more land-based, displayed in a space, in a gallery space? That's the question. Also, it's in our chat, so you can read the question there. Can you hear us, Carolina?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, so like I mentioned before, I showed them these characters, like the ones that have plants inside. I showed them, like I mentioned, for an installation with, that was a lovely opportunity to show them, and I was very lucky because 3 shops, garden shops, sent me their plants. So these characters were in the middle of a kind of jungle. You can check in my Instagram, I have a video. So that make another thing for the characters. But I think in the galleries, because I have to be very careful with the lights as well for the plants. So actually at the moment, I just finished a window set. I was a window display. So because it was in the window display, I didn't have any problems, but I'm going to, in the commercial side, so I have 2 sides, the artist side and the commercial one. And I have been making planters. So in this shop, it doesn't have any lights. So I have to be very careful how I'm going to install it, even now with because if you don't have light, the plant will die. So you need a special light to make them like happy. So that's the question that sometimes have been running in my head. And thank you, Ruth, for making this question, because it has been very hard to fusion all the plans with my art. So and the people that my clients needs to, the people who is going to buy my things, they need to love plants. But not all my things have plants, but yes, it's like you need to have light, or you need to have a window, and that's how, if I have a gallery, and if I have the opportunity to show up in a gallery, I have to see how now you can find in the market a lot of very good lights for plants indoors. So that's one of the solutions to make an installation with plants. And the majority of the plants that I work are interior plants, but they doesn't need a lot of sun, but as well they need sun. So no, they can be. I have a I don't know how you call it. It's thermometer on thermometer. How
Thermometer,
you say the name?
thermometer,
Yes, a
thermometer.
thermometer to see the light. To see the light, and if you go close to a window, because the people that loves plants, they put just close to the window the plants and that's it. But sometimes you need to see the family and the species of the plants. And in these cases, I just work with aquatic plants, and they can live with a lot of sun, so they are very resistant to this project. But as well, I work with a lot of moss, and the moss as well. I have some here. The moss as well doesn't need too much light. I'm going to show you because the moss is amazing for installations and for my work as well. I have been founded that, and it's a thousand of varieties and species of that they doesn't need a lot of light. So it's like it's a question, and depends where the gallery is, if it has a window, or if I need to see what kind of special lights I will need to put to give them light, like no natural light but artificial light. Sorry.
Well, I was wondering, Tamara, would you like to add something, a comment for each of our artist presenters? Oh, you have to unmute your. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
I always forget. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Nikole and Carolina for participating, and of course Ruth and Lisa for contributing and critiquing the work in a very honest and constructive way. And I didn't want to take any of the time from Ruth and Lisa to intervene with questions, but I appreciate all the effort that Nikole and Carolina have placed into this online session, and I realize that it's not a medium that we're all necessarily comfortable with, although we have been practicing it for 3 months now. It still feels awkward and it still feels foreign. I'd rather have this presentation at the gallery, but this is what our reality is now, and I really wanted to thank Nikole, Carolina, Ruth, and Lisa for participating tonight with us and contributing their time and their work.
Yeah. So then to wrap up, thank you, Tamara, for your words. And actually, this kind of speaks from the whole team from SUR. We are really thankful for your presence. We are very happy to have shared, even if within the circumstances, to have you here and hear what you had to say and share your art and continue discussion about making art within complicated context. So, well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone who was here. And I know that some of us, when we're an audience, we tend to be quiet, but it's also very important to have you all. So thank you and have a great evening. And just stay attentive to our next portfolio review. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you. I'm looking forward to any thoughts as how I improve my collection and everything. So thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you, SUR Gallery, for inviting me. This is so helpful, and it's so good to hear advices and tips. Thank you.
Thank you as well. And if anyone has any extra question, please contact me. There is a contact form on my website, and I will be happy to talk to anyone. Thank you so much, SUR Gallery. It was really great, and thank you for the feedback. There is a lot to keep thinking about my project and how to talk about it and how do I envision it in the future. I am really grateful.
Cool. Bye.